This is David Mould. I'm reading from my book Postcards from Stanland, Journeys in Central Asia. This excerpt is entitled Camping Indoors. I don't deliberately stay in rundown Soviet-era hotels so I can write about them later. Sometimes there's just no alternative. From the mid-1990s onward, my teaching, training and consulting work in Central Asia has taken me to places where the accommodation choices are, well, pretty limited. If possible, I rent an apartment, if only for a couple of days. But often I have to take my chances at whatever establishment in town displays a Gastinitsa hotel sign. The municipally owned Hotel Molmol in Jalalabad in southern Kyrgyzstan had probably been a decent enough place in Soviet times, when party bosses came to town to roll out the latest 5-year plan, cook up inflated statistics on the cotton harvest, relax in the hot springs at the local spa, and dine in the hotel ballroom. There also used to be tourists, factory workers and their families, who came to the spa and walked in the walnut groves. But few officials, and probably no tourists, had been there for almost a decade, and the place was in sorry shape. In July 1997 I paid the foreigner's price of $10 for a, quote, luxury room that consisted of a dormitory-style bed, a chest with broken drawers, and a few cockroaches. There was no running water. The staff, cheekily described by the Lonely Planet guide as breathtakingly rude, told me the electricity would go off at 10 p.m. By 8:30 I was sitting in the dark, feeling hungry. The hotel restaurant was closed, for renovations, or so they said. At breakfast the next morning, buffet number 37, the sign was a throwback to communist times when all eating establishments were state-owned and numbered, offered only cold piroshki and tea. Most Soviet-era hotels reflect the ostentatious public architecture of the Stalin, Khrushchev and Brezhnev eras, with their high-rise apartment blocks, massive squares, and government buildings with colonnades and cavernous lobbies. The impressive facades often conceal dark and drab interiors, with poor heating and ventilation, dangerous wiring, and leaky pipes. The Soviets built their hotels large, and even small cities boasted establishments with several hundred rooms. Of course, the number of rooms bore no relation to the expected number of guests. In an economy based on artificial production quotas, not on demand for products and services, there was no place for market research. So there they stand today, large and largely empty. Hotel occupancy rates may still be a state secret in some former Soviet republics, but my guess is that most government hotels in provincial centres don't fill more than 20% of rooms most of the time, and without guests they don't have the money to modernize. In capital cities, Western-style hotels, with Western prices to match, have been built for business travellers and tourists. But in the provinces, the only hotel is often the old government one. This gives them a monopoly on accommodation and the chance to charge exorbitant prices to desperate travellers. On a trip in 1999, I checked into the Hotel Ordubasi in Shymkent. There were 2 room rates, $25 and $100. What's the difference, I asked. Is the $100 room larger and more comfortable? No, said the clerk, the $100 rooms have hot water, at least in the evenings. I went for the budget option. $75 seemed just too much to pay for a shower. My interpreter and I were the only customers for breakfast in the 200-seater restaurant, with its dark velvet drapes and chandeliers. All that was on offer was cold grichka, buckwheat. I found myself feeling almost nostalgic for buffet number 37. These hotels have one saving grace, the dezhurnayas, the floor ladies. The dezhurnaya sits at a table opposite the stairs or elevator, if it's working, and discreetly monitors the comings and goings of guests. You hand in your room key to the dezhurnaya, not at the front desk. Even in Soviet times, the dezhurnayas were not very busy, except when the hotel was full. Today they while away the hours reading magazines and watching TV. But in hotels where room service is not an option, they keep things running, rustling up late-night cups of tea and retrieving linens, blankets and toilet supplies from secret stashes. On a later trip to Ulaanbaatar, the capital of Mongolia, I learned that conditions in other former Soviet satellite states were similar. I asked my friend Susan Rowe, who had travelled to the provinces, to rate the hotels. "Pretty grim," she said, "rather like camping indoors." I've learned 3 valuable lessons about camping indoors. If you're 6 feet, as I am, or taller, sleep at an angle because the beds are short. They must all have been manufactured at the same Soviet factory from standard lengths. Carry a few tools so you can fix the furniture and, if you're handy, the plumbing too. And remember to tip the dezhurnaya on the first day of your stay. Postcards from Stanland, Journeys in Central Asia by David Mould is published by the Ohio University Press, ohioswallow, that's one word, .com, and available from independent bookstores, Amazon, and other online booksellers.